Welcome, Chief Hill. We're really excited. The chief has been with the Lincoln University Police Department since 2016. He also currently serves as the Vice President of Campus Culture and Director of the Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy, in addition to his duties as chief. He started his criminal justice career as a corrections officer at the Jefferson City Correctional Center in 1996. He also was with the Cole County Sheriff's Department in 98, and he was promoted through the ranks from deputy to sergeant in 2002. And he also serves as patrol division commander until 2016. So he's been working his way up that ladder, and now he's chief. He came to Jefferson City from Muskogee, Oklahoma to attend Lincoln University, where he graduated in 2001 with a Bachelor's of Science and, of course, criminal justice. He went on to get his master's in criminal justice agencies from our Columbia College in 2006, and he's currently working on his criminal justice doctoral degree at North Central University. He's also a graduate of the FBI's National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, which I know well. He's a task force officer with the FBI on the Joint Terrorism Task Force. He's also been with the SWAT team in the 2000s, and he's played an intricate role in the Central Missouri Tactical Officers Association. This is all stuff we're not familiar with, Chief Hill, so you need to update us. He also was awarded the Law Enforcement Commendation Medal from the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution. He's really been active in the community in Jeff City, working with the football team, the Boys and Girls Club, the Lions Club, all sorts of stuff. So this is a pretty active guy as well as being chief. Anyway, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come to you guys about some of the stuff that I do and that I get to do for our communities and Lincoln University. So thank you for reaching out to me. Sorry about can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Yep. Okay. And so just to give you a little bit of background, when she said that I was from Muskogee, Oklahoma, it's real funny because I try to tell everyone thinks I'm like from Chicago or Atlanta or something, and I have to say, no, I'm from Okie, from Muskogee. Earl Haggard song, Earl Haggard song. And so people always tease me about that. But it was really good for me to come up to Lincoln University. I really don't know where my life would have been had I not come up here to Lincoln University. So I'm going to try to share my slide deck with you guys. So bear with me on this, and hopefully we can get it up. Okay. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes, that looks great.
Outstanding. Okay, so Lincoln University, just to give you a little bit of history, we start out for our law enforcement training academy. I had the idea of having a law enforcement training academy. Simple fact of the matter is when I went to the police academy in '97, I went to the sheriff's training academy. And in that academy, there were like 26 of us. And I was one of 2 people of color in that academy. And so as I progressed on through my law enforcement career, it was always talked about as how can we increase the diversity in our law enforcement, not only just in the state of Missouri, but, throughout the nation, because, it's been one of those things where the history between African-Americans and law enforcement hasn't always been one in which that was something that, we bring to light. And so now, as all these things that had happened, and we've had several incidences that have been brought to the media, I was like, how can we increase the minority input into law enforcement to get people to be interested in it? So I thought that, what better place to start a law enforcement training academy than at a historically Black college? And so I got to doing some research with my colleague, Joseph Steenbergen, and we found out, and we started looking to figure out how many colleges, how many historically Black colleges throughout the nation there were. There are 107 historically Black colleges. And we come to find out that none of those had a police academy on their campus. Several of them, 52 of them, had actual criminal justice programs, but they did not have police academies. And so we didn't know that we were going to be the first when we started this academy. We had absolutely no idea. I sent you some links to the ABC Nightline and also a New York Times article that I did, and I hope you guys get a chance to listen to that. But I kind of talked a little bit about that on what, pushed me to be able to do this. And so one of the things that was one of the most important was our goal is to use our academy to give our recruits the opportunity to attend a basic law enforcement academy with diversity and inclusion in mind. And I love our academy classes because our academy classes have been very diverse. And diversity is one of the things that Lincoln University is probably the best at. When you look at some of the other HBCUs around the country or colleges in general, when you look at the diversity aspect of it, when we look at our racial demographics, one of the things that you'll come to find out is even though Lincoln University is a historically Black college, we're about 40-60, 40 African-American and 60% white. And so that makes for an excellent dynamic here in the middle of Missouri, because you don't see that everywhere. And so the history of Lincoln University was it was founded by Union soldiers and of the 62nd Colored Infantry. They came to Lincoln University after the Civil War. They used all of their money that they were paid during the Civil War. They saved it to start Lincoln Institute, which was huge. And so the primary instructor for Lincoln University for these Black soldiers was their white lieutenant. He taught them how to read, he taught them how to write, he taught them the education that they needed in order for Lincoln University Institute to be established. And so other Union soldiers after the war started coming to Lincoln University in order to get their education. And it was based off of those soldiers that, had the idea of what better place other than, Jefferson City, Missouri, to start a school for freed slaves to be able to learn how to read and write and get an education. And so it has a very rich history about that. And this is just another little bit, a tidbit about, how much they paid, when it was actually founded, $1,400 in 1866. Can you imagine how much money that was? That's huge. That was pretty much everything the soldiers had in order to be able to start the Institute. And so when we look at our long-term goals for Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy, we want to serve as a centerpiece pretty much for training and knowledge and collaboration with other law enforcement agencies. And so what I mean by that is I use instructors from all the surrounding law enforcement agencies because I want everyone to be a stakeholder in this, including our community people. And so I have instructors from Missouri State Highway Patrol who teach at the Missouri State Highway Patrol Academy. I have instructors from Jefferson City Police Department, Columbia Police Department, Missouri Conservation, Jefferson City, Cole County Sheriff's Office, my agency, Osage County Sheriff's Office. So as many people as I can get involved, and Holt Summit Police Department, excuse me, as many people as I can get involved in our academy to ensure that they get a well-rounded education as far as, what we should be doing in law enforcement and how to do it correctly to where it's at the approval of all of our community members. I needed a well diverse group of people and instructors, and I was lucky to be able to get that. A lot of law enforcement academies have full-time paid instructors to where that's all they do is teach at the academy. And what we come to find out is oftentimes those instructors who are off the road, who this is all they do is teach at the academy, they get kind of cynical and stuck in their ways, and they are in the loop as far as what's going on in the expectations of our local communities. So being able to have instructors who are currently doing the job, currently on the road, currently taking calls for services and keeping their ear to the community helps our recruits get a better education. So our goal, again, is to continue to promote diversity in the law enforcement. We've been able, in our existence, we've been in existence for 2.5 years now. We are on our 9th class. So we'll start a class on August 21st, and then we'll start another class in September 6th in St. Louis. So in St. Louis, we have another HBCU, which is Harris-Stowe. And so we were able to mimic what we have here at Lincoln University at Harris-Stowe. And so we have 2 academy classes going on at the same time. We've been really successful in keeping to our word as far as being able to recruit more diverse police forces. As it stands right now, Missouri has 21 police academies throughout the state, and that's to include Missouri State Highway Patrol, Kansas City, St. Louis, and their academies there. So we're looking at 21 police academies in the state of Missouri. And within the 2.5 years, we were able to graduate and get employed 78 minorities, and that's to include females as well. We consider females to be minorities in the group as far as law enforcement. 78. No police academy has ever been able to do that in the state of Missouri. And so we're trying to figure out what's our secret sauce. How are we able to do this when all the other academies, including Missouri State Highway Patrol, how are we able to recruit minorities and other people of color to be able to come to our academy? And the only thing that we can think of was that we believe the simple fact of the matter, we're an HBCU. And we attribute that to most people want to hang around other people that look like them, want to go to places that people like them, just like our churches and our social groups. We go to church with people who are the same, denomination as us and things like that. So as we're doing the research, that's kind of what we're looking at, because other than that, we're really no different than any other police academy, other than the fact of the conversations that we have during the academy and what we talk about. A lot of our students, once they graduate, especially the Lincoln University students, and so I want to clarify something, you don't have to be a full-time student to go to our police academy. You can be a working adult and go to the academy and still get 15 college credit hours just for going to the academy. We have that. So we have a mixture of working adults who have full-time jobs in the daytime and go to our academy at night. That's what makes us different. We are a nighttime, part-time police academy. And so we go from 5 o'clock at night until sometimes 10 o'clock and sometimes 11. And then we go 8 to 5 on Saturday. We take Sunday off with the exception of the days that we have firearms training, pursuit driving, and things like that. Those are things that we do on the weekend because the Missouri State Highway Patrol allows us to use their emergency driving track, and they don't use it during the weekend. So we're able to do that. Again, it's all about partnerships for us to be able to make this program work. So some of the roadblocks that we come to find out with our recruits, especially with our Black recruits, is we found that a lot of them are coming from neighborhoods that we call economic distress zones, coming from neighborhoods to where the poverty level is really, really, really high. And so some of our students were having problems just, with financial paperwork, having a social security card. One of the craziest things that I found out was how many kids from the big cities don't have driver's license. That was just so odd to me, and I couldn't figure out why. So I had to pull a couple of them in and say, what's the deal? Why don't you have a driver's license? And they would say, well, Chief, I'm from Chicago and it's too expensive to park. We have trains and buses to go everywhere. There's really no reason for us to have a driver's license. And I didn't think about that because I've always lived in rural America. So just little things like that. Especially also with our Black recruits, we found out the lack of support that they received if they chose a job in law enforcement. You wouldn't think that that would be a big deal, but that is huge. To be able to take on this job that, when I decided that I wanted to be a police officer, I lost a whole lot of friends. And I wanted to get into law enforcement, for a couple of different reasons. At the time, I had a child. And we hadn't always had a whole lot of money and things like that. I wanted to break the cycle of poverty, and being able to break the cycle of poverty. The best thing for me to do was either go into the military, or take this job that I know that, is going to be able to provide for me and my family. And so when we talk to our recruits about that, we always say, hey, yes, you may lose some friends, you may lose, family members because you're taking a job in law enforcement, because unfortunately, a lot of people see us all the same. They see us, we wear the uniform, and it's like when new police officers come, it's like they go to an island and then they put us on a boat and then bring us to the United States to be police officers. And that's definitely not the case. We are all different in variations. And that is one of the issues that we're trying to fight here in law enforcement, that, a lot of these things that are happening are on an individual basis. And I truly believe that the one can make the difference. In any bad situation that we've seen on TV that's questionable, a majority of it could have been stopped had one person decide to make a different decision, whether it's the suspect or whether it was the officer involved. The power of one for me is one of the things that I teach daily. I go in there and tell them daily how one person can make a difference. And so we were very proud to see when we started the academy, the response that we got from law enforcement, especially from our Black communities. Remember, we started the law enforcement training academy at Lincoln right in the middle of the George Floyd chaos that was going on. And so we didn't know, I was getting emails, I was getting phone calls of people telling me that, it was insensitive that I would try to start a police academy at a historically Black college right in the middle of George Floyd and all the protests and things going on. And in my mind, I was thinking, what better time to start a police academy? And it's not to say that more Black cops is going to stop crime or anything else like that. For us, it's all about representation. When people see people that look like them, whether they're Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, or whatever, people feel like their concerns are going to be taken, under consideration because they see representation within the police force. Our public offices should mirror the communities that they serve, so that everyone has representation in our country. And so we'll move on to the next slide. And so these are some of the programs and stuff that we teach at Lincoln University. So we're up to 660 hours of police training. That does not sound like a lot. Plus, I have to hear it from my wife all the time, who owns a hair salon, who says, hey, we have to have 1,800 hours worth of training and you guys only had to have 600. I have a problem with that. So there's a constant argument between me and my wife about who has the most training. But when we look at the training for police standards, we're at 660. And so we look at administrative procedures, constitutional law, the Missouri statute, traffic law, ethics and professionalism, in which we hit on very hard, domestic violence. That's almost 40 hours worth of training. There's only so much information that we can talk about in these things that are listed before it just becomes the same stuff over and over again. You can always do more hours of driving. You can always do more hours of shooting and defensive tactics. But when it comes to interpersonal skills and stuff like that, we're doing almost 200 hours of that, including CIT. If you look on the other instructional block where it says crisis intervention team, that's literally a 40-hour block of instruction that our recruits get, learning how to deal with suicidal people, learning how to deal with people with mental health issues, people who have substance abuse issues and problems. 4 hours. They do a really good job. We bring in the Missouri Department of Corrections CIT unit to do this. And this is who trains their officers on how to deal with this. And they do a fantastic job. One of the things that they do, which is an eye-opening experience for our recruits, is when you're dealing with someone that says they hear voices in their head. And so in order to be able to put the recruits through something like that, they make all the recruits put these headphones on, and then it's constant whispers of people saying that they want to do bad things to themselves or other people or do this and stuff like that. And at the same time, trying to get them to focus on other things that are going on in the classroom. And it's always great to hear the recruits after we do this, because they always say, oh my gosh, is that what that's like to hear voices in your head constantly all day, every day? And our goal is to put our recruits in the position and in the shoes of the people of the community that we serve. And so the best way to be able to do that is through CIT and other practical exercises. We do, a little bit on homeland security with terrorism and things to be looking for, mitigating terrorist incidents and stuff like that. But I have to say that our crisis intervention and being able to deal with the community's problems is our biggest issue right now. We're at a time in our society to where the general public is going to have to, at some point in time, figure out who they want us to be as law enforcement. And what I mean by that is we have so many issues going on in our society that, and the public expects us to be able to deal with all of it. Now, keep in mind, you're currently looking at the 600 hours of training of curriculum that we have, and we get called for everything. From my child my child is disobeying me to, kids are fighting in school and things like that. So we're dealing with everything. And a lot of this stuff we really shouldn't be dealing with. We should be able to be, as a community, as a society, handle a majority of these things. Some of the issues and problems that we have in school, I'm 50 years old. So when I think about problems in school, they were non-existent because we were getting paddlings in school up until like 1994, I think, is when we stopped getting paddlings in Muskogee. They stopped doing it. But we didn't have those type of issues and problems in school. And now they're putting police at the forefront to be able to deal with it. So this is why we're looking at increasing more hours, but trying to increase those hours for our recruits in the right areas so that we could, make a better difference and not make things so hostile between us and the community that we serve. So these are some of the things that we ran into, recruit issues and allowing people to get into the academy. The application process, again, getting birth certificates and social security cards and things from some of the younger students who don't have them, and teaching them how to do it. Legalization of marijuana. It's not nationwide. It is here in Missouri, but there are still agencies that you have to be marijuana free for at least 2 years before you're allowed to apply to get into the academy. And that's been challenged a lot because there are a lot of people that take other prescribed medication that is 10 times worse than marijuana could ever be, and still are allowed to be able to go into the police academy. And so those are the type of things that we've been juggling. When we look at the admission and qualifications in the hiring process. So one of the things that I should tell you all is when you look at throughout the nation and you see on TV how law enforcement, how resignations are up and retirements are up and all these things are going on. And this is why we're so shorthanded now. So one of the things I should tell you is this, we're seeing the retirement of the baby boomers. All the baby boomers are retiring. So, and everyone, there's a lot of things going on as far as they're saying is the Ferguson effect, it's the George Floyd effect, it's the riots and things like that have been going on throughout the enforcement academies are having to fight. And what I mean by that is we look at the media bias that we have to talk to our recruits about. And this is on the first day of class. And if you think about law enforcement, and if I asked everyone on this Zoom call right now to enroll into my law enforcement training academy, how many of you would? Okay, I'll be the only one. So when you look at me asking you all to enroll, the first thing people say, oh my gosh, law enforcement is so dangerous. I don't know if I could get into, law enforcement with it being so dangerous right now with all the riots and everything else. And so if you're like me and you're a good student of research, you'll go back and look, even with all the riots that happened in George Floyd, out of the 20-something thousand riots across the United States that we had, only 7 out of the 20,000, only 7 of them were violent. But if you look at the media, they only put the violent ones on TV, which again, scared off a lot of people and want to be in law enforcement. I bet you if I ask you this question, everyone on here will get it wrong. Where do you think law enforcement rates as the most dangerous job in the United States?
Third.
Okay, you got third,
Fifth.
fifth. Law enforcement doesn't even rank in the top 30 of the most dangerous jobs by the Department of Labor here in the United States. You got factory workers, truck drivers, fishermen, drivers. Those people get in accidents and get killed every day. Every day.
Farmers.
Huh? Farmers, yep, from accidents and stuff off of tractors. When I was a county deputy, I can't count the times where I went to an accident where tractors flipped over someone or someone fell off and got hit by their brush hog. I mean, all the time. And so we don't even rank in the top 30 of most dangerous jobs for injuries and deaths in the United States. But if you listen to the media, unfortunately, we're being killed every day. There's a website that you can go to, which we give to our recruits when we're recruiting these recruits, that we say, hey, go to this website and look at it. And it's called Keep It Up Under 100. And what it means is keep law enforcement deaths up under 100. You can go to this website and it will tell you how every law enforcement officer for any particular year has died. We die more from heart attacks, health issues, suicide. Those are the highest numbers. As far as being killed by someone in an ambush or in the process of trying to effect an arrest, it's fairly low. Maybe the highest has been like 70 a year. And that's nationwide out of 850,000 uniformed police officers. So that's the type of information that we have to be prepared to talk to these recruits when we're trying to get them to sign on, because there's so much misinformation out there. And I'm like the CIA. I'll tell you something, but I say trust but verify. Verify everything I say, and that way is you can get a different perspective of it. And so our first class was in 2021. The initial class consisted of 14 recruits. Unfortunately, we only graduated, the graduating class consisted of 9. We had some flunk out. We had some had to get out for various personal reasons, time commitments and things like that. And it just wasn't going to work out for them. We had a lot of media spotlight, and I had absolutely no idea this was going to happen. And it was because of the issue between, us being an HBCU and having a police academy on our campus with everything that was going on as far as race relations and stuff were concerned. And so we kind of took a little bit of advantage of that in the sense of being able to get people to come talk to us. So just like I'm talking to you all right now, to be able to talk about these certain issues and stuff that we're having in law enforcement and how, we can make things better. So this is our actual facility. It's on the campus of Lincoln University. My office is directly in front of this building across the street. It was an old strip mall that Lincoln University purchased that we have classes in. And so we were able to renovate the classrooms and the interior of it to, it doesn't look like much on the outside, but everything and the magic happens on the inside. And so these are our classrooms. And as you can see right there where it says the LU Law Enforcement Training Academy, that is one of our conference rooms, and our office and break room is down the hall. In the subsequent pictures next to that, you will see that's downstairs in the basement. So Helias High School, one of our Catholic high schools here, donated their old wrestling mats to us for the program. And so we are able to put those mats downstairs to be able to use that as our defensive tactics room, teach the recruits how to handcuff, teach them how to defend themselves in close quarters and things like that. And so a lot of the program we were able to do and just by donations. It should be noted that when I started this program, I started it with $50,000. That was my budget, $50,000. That's all I had. And so even to this day, I'm still the only full-time employee of the Law Enforcement Training Academy. Everyone else is a part-time instructor. So these are the list of instructors that we have that I was talking about, making sure that we have, representation from everyone, that everyone's a stakeholder, especially our first responders, and ensuring that we're able to train our recruits and give them the best information possible so they can be successful out there on the job. So we recruit a little bit to ensure that, the program stays sustainable. And thus far, we have been very, 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 very lucky that we haven't had some of the problems that some of the other law enforcement academies have, and that's no recruits. We have people recruiting from our students as far away from Iowa to Colorado, from Texas, and even Georgia. And so we're really, 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 really lucky that we're able to keep this program going. So some of the questions that we have is how to implement a law enforcement training academy on your campus is what we get asked by other HBCUs. And I always tell them the easiest way to start a police academy is to partner with an academy that is already in place. That way you're just providing facilities, let them do the hiring as far as the instructors and use part-time instructors to make it sustainable. Everything we do is kind of twofold. So I have the Lincoln University side of the academy, and then I have the Department of Public Safety side of the academy. I handle all the stuff that comes with the Department of Public Safety and the governor's office and stuff on that. Joe Steenbergen handles everything within Lincoln University, giving them the college credit hours, enrolling them in the classes and making sure their financial aid and stuff is taken care of. And so we've been able to make it work, and we've been able to make the program sustainable. What we're going to get into at the academy is in that other column, continuing education classes for law enforcement. And so we're going to start doing racial profiling, de-escalation, use of force, police and minority communities, legal updates, mental health for officers, which is huge. And I'll talk about that one just a little bit. So the mental health for police officers is huge. And the reason being is, as a deputy, I can tell you, we covered 420 square miles and 11 other towns when I worked the road. And back then, you were one riot, one ranger. You were pretty much by yourself. We didn't have the manpower that the sheriff's office currently has now. And I can tell you, in my time, it was nothing to put almost 300 miles a night on my patrol car, working a 10-hour shift. As a deputy, you're responsible. You act as the coroner or the medical and the medical examiner. So it'd be nothing to go to a house to where someone had passed away and been in there for some time in the middle of the summer and have to work with the medical examiner's office, the local conveyance to get that situation taken care of, and then go to a domestic violence incident where someone was severely injured and kids were injured, and then go help Missouri State Highway Patrol on a fatality traffic accident, then go break up a fight, then catch a DWI, and just in one night. And so the mental problem with police officers, everyone expects us to be tough. Everyone expects us to be, well, you signed on for this, you should have been ready for it. So we talk to our recruits about the things that no one talked to us older officers about, and that is make sure that you take time away from the job. Make sure that you have friends who are not police officers. You don't want to develop the us against them. Okay, you have to be able to exist within the communities and stuff that we live in and be a part of it. Oftentimes, police officers only want to hang out with other police officers, and we stress not to do that in the academy. We talk about other contemporary issues like the ones that we just talked about earlier with how many police officers and how much how actual dangerous the job is. So as a director, as long as I follow the post curriculum that was given to me by the Missouri Department of Public Safety, we can have other discussions. And I always make the discussions recruit led. Ask your questions. What are you concerned with? What are you talking about? And the reason why that's so important to me is we have students from all over the nation. Black students, white students, female, male, students of different religion. And so they get to talk about their different beliefs and why they believe those things and help other people that don't look like them and believe what they believe to have a better understanding of the people who they may possibly be policing. And I think that is huge, to be able to have those discussions when no one has a chip on their shoulder. Be able to have those discussions to where we can talk about, and respect each other's opinion. Everyone has it, but we have to respect each other's opinion in order for us to come to an agreement and cohabitate together and to be able to serve the public. And so that's what we do at the Academy at Lincoln. Again, I'm very proud of this. My mother tells me and my father tells me all the time how proud they are of me because my mom thought for sure that I was going to be in trouble by this time, and I was able to prove her wrong. And so me being able to help other students and help other people, and especially other people that don't look like me, to have an understanding of what's going on in certain communities, what's going on and why people think the way they think about law enforcement. For me, I'm hoping that if I can affect just one person to be able to go out, one officer, one recruit, to be able to come and talk to someone and have the same conversations that we have in our academy, I consider that to be a win. So what questions can I answer for you all?
Herb, I saw your hand go up first, or it could have been Sue. Why don't you kick us off here?
Could we close out the slide here
Yeah.
so I can see faces? That's a nice slide.
That would be my family.
I think if you go to the very top, I think it'll say something like "Stop sharing."
Let's see here.
Let me start with two compliments then while you're trying to figure
There you
this
go.
out.
Yeah.
Two quick compliments. One, Lincoln, and you feature this on your website. Lincoln's training program is the first at any historically Black college in the United States. And it is still, I think, the only one in
That's
the
correct.
United States. Number two, thank you for helping to chip away by establishing this program, what is a very serious recruitment problem for law enforcement agencies across the country, which is affecting everything from the city of Columbia to the State Highway Patrol to whatever.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Now, the question is, your site declares that yours is a 700-hour program, the website. And that's above the post minimum of 600, which is a low number, way below, say, North Carolina at 900 minimum. And it's not as high as the programs in St. Louis County, which is about 900, and St. Louis City was over 1,000.
Mhm.
But you've got room to do things that are not mandated by post and over and above post. And I hope that you are doing things consistent with what I and my fellow former post commissioner back in the day, Clarence Harmon, talked about as community policing. You
Yes,
are
sir.
clearly emphasizing that for your supplementary programs for peace officers. That's clearly what that's all about. Are you doing more of this across the curriculum or in special ways within your mandatory program?
So yes, sir. Two questions. And as a fellow post commissioner myself, I am still on the post commission at this time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And so what we do is during our practical exercise portions, we go out to the farms at Lincoln University. And what we have out there, we have a campground, which has 9 cabins on it. And this is that part of community policing that we often miss. And so I put a call out to the community for role players. So I have our role players, our community members, people like everyone that's on the screen right now, from all ages and backgrounds, probably about 20 people or so, and we put different people in the different cabins, and then we create calls for service. And we teach how community service has to be involved in every call for service that we get. The issue that we have right now is law enforcement with their manpower has so many calls for service that we don't have time to do the things that we need to do. We lost a lot of our community service power when we got the patrol cars. When we stopped doing walking patrols and walking the beats and things like that, we lost a lot of our community service power because I would be able to know that, you know, hey, Herb and Sue are over there arguing. Oh, no, it's not going to be serious. I know Herb and Sue, they'll be just fine. He probably didn't cut the grass or do what he was supposed to do, the honeydew list. And so I knew that because I was walking the beat and I would see you guys outside and I would be able to talk to you. Now we're riding around with our windows up, air conditioner on, and we're going from call to call, and we're not being able to give the citizens that community service. They don't know who we are and we don't know who you are. Another part of that is we tell them for community policing, if at all possible, live within the community that you serve. A lot of police officers don't want to live in the communities that they serve anymore because they're like, I don't want to have to work even when I'm at home. But I remember when my patrol car sat outside my house, I remember kids coming running up to my house, knocking on the door saying, hey, my mom and dad are fighting. Can you please come over here? Or my sister's choking and things like that. And that's where we have to get back to. For the most part, we do it within the training. Everything we do is centered around, okay, this is what the curriculum says. How is this applicable to community policing? What decisions and what could we make as a decision for ending this call that's going to be beneficial to everyone involved, especially the community. And so that's what we do. Even though it's only 600 on 700 hours, we still include community policing in everything we teach.
I was going to add just a little something. I once had the pleasure of talking to someone actually that worked for Judge Bill Knox, but she had been a deputy sheriff. And she said one of the things that was she only got knocked out once, or socked once. She said, because so many even drunk males have been socialized, they don't hit a woman. And so they won't go to trying to fight. And it's easier for a woman often in where people are very agitated to bring it down and keep it from getting violent. And I'm glad that you're including women in your group.
Absolutely. That's huge for us. And it helps the males in the academy recruits see a different perspective and different side of it as well.
Yep. And I think that's just as important as how they interact with the community itself, is trying to get that example within the police community.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to go to, bye, Rosemary. Thanks for coming. We're going to go to Pam's question next, but I just wanted to quickly interject. You all might remember Jenna Radel that we helped get elected as Boone County Treasurer, went through a program, possibly this program. I don't know where she did it, but she was a police officer for a time, and it was through a program that was recruiting minority, and she being female was a minority officers, and that's how she paid for her law degree. Pam?
Okay.
Yes, I have a comment first and then a question. I do hope that you send to Columbia some of your graduates, because we have openings here and we would dearly love to have them. My question is, and I'm wondering if instructors from St. Louis and Kansas City might bring another perspective and that you may not have, or am I missing something?
Well, so what we do when the Kansas City recruits and people come down, we come down and we give them about an hour to talk to our recruits, to tell them their specific issues and things that they have going on in St. Louis and Kansas City. Kansas City has 1,300 police officers, sworn police officers. That's how many positions they have. They currently just had an academy class, and they only had like 15 people in their academy. And so one of the biggest things and problems that we have to deal with is the reputation of the law enforcement agency. If your law enforcement agency has a bad reputation, you're really, no matter how much money you offer people, they're not going to come work for your agency. And that's what a lot of people are finding out. It's not so much the problems are going to be the same, just a little bit more. The same problems we have in small towns, we have in the big city. They're just happening more frequently at a higher frequency. And so we try to make sure that we talk about that. If we have a little bit of drugs in this small town, imagine us being in a big town and how much drugs are there and things like that. And so when the St. Louis recruiters and the Kansas City recruiters come down, they do offer a different perspective to the recruits as far as what they might see more of, and a majority of. So I hope that answered your question. I don't know if now in St. Louis at the Harris Stowe site, we do have all St. Louis instructors there. So my instructors from Jefferson City don't go to St. Louis. I have a set of instructors up there in St. Louis that teach those recruits up there. And we have meetings to ensure that we're all on the same page.
Mari, I think your hand was next.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you for your presentation. And thank you for establishing this academy. And I think it can do a lot of good. Our daughter was a police officer for 15 years in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm going to ask about a couple of the issues that I know she faced. Pam, you kind of covered part of it. Is I think there is a difference between the approach in urban policing versus a rural county sheriff that's on his own out, covering a lot of territory all by themselves. But I think that in trying to recruit minorities, including women, do you do any specific training? This is the first part of my question. Do you do any specific training focused on helping the potential future officers cope with racial discrimination and or sexual harassment within their ranks? And then secondly, I know when she went through academy training at the Columbus Police Academy 20 years ago, it was highly militarized training. There was a lot of focus on terrorism and SWAT teams and the ability to go in with a great deal of force and, kick butts. And I just wanted to find out if that is still a major component of the training, or to what extent do you think that's changed during your career?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Great question. To address your first question, yes, we do. And we, in reference to female training and minority training, we address that in ethics and professionalism portion of the class. So that's roughly around 16 hours worth of training. And so when we talk about the ethics stuff, we especially hit really hard on female officers, what you can expect and what you should not in any way, shape, or form put up with. And so we talk about that, and we make sure we allow them to ask questions, and we bring in other female officers to talk to the recruits in that portion of the ethics, to let them know, hey, this is what you'll see. This is some of the stuff that I went through. And I make sure to try to find as many female officers that have a story to tell. It's one thing to start talking about, what's in the book and everything, but people who have lived experiences and they are willing to talk about it are much better teachers than the book could ever be on that. When it comes to another question was, as far as recruiting minority, what was the question on that? The second question?
The second question had to do with the sort of militarized training
Yes.
that was in vogue 20 years ago when our daughter went through training.
Yes. And so because the war on drugs, the war on terror, the war on opioids, the war on all those things that unfortunately our government decides to put that tag on, has put us in those particular situations. So we have an adult style learning police academy. We got away from the tin hut and the yes ma'am. We have to say yes ma'am and no sir, but we got away from the militaristic style of the academy. We're more of a classroom style academy, and then we go into our practical exercises to where for the most part we teach respect. And the reason why we got away from the military class and the yelling and screaming is this: if I yell and scream at you for 6 months in the academy, and I'm yelling and cussing at you for 6 months in the academy, what are you going to do when you get out there on the streets? And so that's why we went away from it at our particular academy. I know some academies still teach the military rhetoric and and the talking and things. And it's always funny when I see a police officer on TV and he's pulling out his gun and he's saying, "Get on the ground," and using explicit terms and stuff like that and cussing people and yelling at people. At no academy in the United States do we teach that, or is that any curriculum. The unfortunate part about that is something that's learned either during FTO or because some of the military style academies, they were getting yelled at and cussed at and screamed at there. And so no ma'am, we do not do the military. The closest we come to the military style of training is during PT, physical training. So, and that's to ensure that we get the best out of you, to ensure that you get better every time we do PT. But outside of that, no ma'am. And as far as our firearms training, we do almost 100 hours worth of a little bit over 100 hours worth of firearms training and stuff like that. But remember, we're dealing with people who have never touched firearms before. You know, a lot of them never touched firearms before. I've been teaching in police academies for a long time, and you'll find this fact pretty interesting. It's the reason why we have so many issues in law enforcement sometimes where it comes to use of force. I was teaching at the Missouri Sheriff's Training Academy since 2009 before we started this academy. And in every academy class that I would start, I would say, raise your hand if you've been in a knockdown, drag out fight. And there would be maybe 1 or 2 in each classes from 10 people to 30 people. Only one person would raise their hand that has been in an actual fight. And so a lot of times when you see some of the things that happen is because people have never been in that situation. And so we do our best to put people in situations to where they can talk their way out of it before going to that stuff on their little Batman belt to deal with the situations.
All right. Dave Taylor's had his hand up for a bit, and then we'll go to Alan Mary Jo.
I'm always going to remember Batman belt from now on. Thanks for that. Chief, you said something earlier that struck home with me, that you encourage all of your trainees and officers to hang out with people, make friends with people who aren't police officers. And that got me thinking, well, duh, that makes sense. Of course you would say that. But then I thought about myself, you know, as I get older, it's harder and harder for me to hang out with, let's say, Republicans, people who aren't like me, people who are different. You know, it's not that easy to go out and hang out with people who are different than you are. And so I really applaud that, but I think we all need to do some of that, not just police officers. Maybe we ought to all try to hang out with more police officers.
We'd appreciate that.
But just hanging out with people with different ideas, different opinions, different beliefs, different social strata, all of that, I think, is a huge help. And it really makes a difference when our law enforcement officers do that as well. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I tell you a funny story. So my neighbor, he's a big Republican, and he's a big President Trump fan and all the things, got all the flags and stuff. And we don't have a lot of people in our neighborhood. And one day him and his wife are out walking, and he had been talking to a bunch of his friends. It's a funny story. It's a horrible story, but it's a funny story. And he stopped me while I was cutting grass, and he was talking, and we got to talking about politics, and then he got on socialism and stuff like that. And then he said, well, you know, Gary, don't take offense, but, you know, and his name is Gary too. He said, you know, if we can get a lot of the people of color, if we can get them off food stamps, and, you know, maybe, you know, we could save some money and, you know, divert that money into Social Security and things like that. And I started laughing, and his wife kind of just looked at me and looked at him. And I said, Gary, I said, you realize that African Americans only make up 13% of the population. So even if every African American was on food stamps or some sort of public assistance, it would only be a drop in the bucket. He goes, what? I said, it would only be a drop in the bucket. And then so he come back the next day and he goes, you were right. And so for me, being able to hang out with people, because I'm one of those people that like to read and research, even for me, you know, and that conversation went on. That's so important. And I tell that story to my academy students as well. It's so important to get different perspectives. It's all about perspectives and being able, again, I know where he probably got his information from somewhere and all this other stuff and truly believed in it. But whenever police officers can hang out with the general public and teach them why we do what we do, which is why I have the public come and volunteer to do traffic stops, because this is what traffic stops are supposed to be like. This is what we're allowed to do on a traffic stop. And when I have our public portray a domestic violence situation or some sort of disturbance stuff, this is what cops are supposed to do when we get there, and this is why we do those things. To me, it brings all the stakeholders together, and we get to talk about why we do the things they do. And then the community members go back out into the public, and they get to say, hey, I was with the police academy and training the recruits. This is why they do this. I did not know that. And so perspective to me is huge.
Alan Mary Jo.
I just want to say I was a deputy sheriff 40 years ago, and I just really appreciate what you're doing, and best of luck, because it was much needed back then, and I'm sure it's needed now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Pam?
Yes, this is something that I heard and I want to know, I know you will know the answer to this. This is something that I heard after the Uvalde shooting.
Uh-huh.
And I heard that one of the reasons those police did not go in was because the bullets from an AR-15 would go right through their vests.
So yes and no. So if you go back and look at those videos, most of the officers, the first officers that went there, no, they didn't have on rifle plates. But when the other officers got there and you see the stack of officers in the hallway that were waiting, they were wearing rifle rated plates. Our regular bulletproof vests will not stop any kind of rifle round.
Okay.
And so, yes, there is some truth to that. But at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that you won't get shot someplace that the bulletproof vest doesn't cover. And so most officers, we will always have a duty to act. And that was the issue. The kids in that room didn't have anything. You at least had a weapon and a vest that, you know, you could have done something. And it was just a horrible look and it was a horrible situation for everyone.
Sure. I wasn't aware there was more than one kind of vest, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Mari?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm so pleased that you have this academy, and I can't help but think that the white officers that you're training are going to be much better police officers for having been through a more diverse academy. So
that is what they tell us at the end of every academy, because they, again, some of our recruits that we've had are from up north past you guys, up in the Macon and Mobley area. That we've had in the academy, to where, again, they don't see people that look like me for the most part. So being able to spend 6 months and watching those bonds and relationships form, for me, again, I get goosebumps when I see at the end of the academy, and and I've had recruits tell me, I've never ever hung out with a Black person before in my life. And the only thing I know about Black people is what I see on TV or the music or this and that. And we're all alike, and we all have problems. We all have bills. We all have this. We all have that. The really and truly, the only thing different is the color of our skin. And to hear people say that and come to that realization, like I said, that's happened several times. I probably should have just retired the first time that I heard it. So.
All right, and I think we had one question Kathy had asked in the chat during your presentation. She's asked, please say more about your thinking regarding having mental health professionals respond with police to suicide risk calls as well as domestic violence calls. Did you still want to talk about that, Kathy? Yes, I see you're saying yes.
Absolutely. I am a big proponent of that. Actually, one of the programs we were hoping to get started at Lincoln University, because we want Lincoln University to become kind of like the public safety hub, since we're dead smack in the middle. Missouri State Highway Patrol is here, and we have public safety here. We're right here at the Capitol. So if you get a chance, there's a program that's been going on for like 20-something years, and I know they're doing it in Colorado now. And the program's called Cahoots. Okay, and it's CAHOOTS, and it's out of Eugene, Oregon. And this program was established 20-something years ago, before all this police reform stuff had been going on. And what this program is it's a van, and inside this van you have a juvenile mental health professional, an adult health professional, a nurse practitioner, and a regular counselor, and a police officer. And the police officer doesn't wear a uniform, and he's usually the driver, and he's just there to make things safe. This unit goes out and they handle those type of calls. Mental health crisis calls with children and things like that. And we were wanting to start a training program to establish units like that in the state of Missouri. There are several large agencies like Columbia and some of the other bigger agencies in Kansas City and St. Louis that have what they call Dove units. and that stands for Domestic Violence Investigation Units. And they handle only domestic violence calls. And so being CIT trained, the crisis intervention training, the 40 hours and stuff certifies you as a crisis interventionist. And if there's a call that needs that and there are other police officers there, they will usually try to get someone that's CIT certified there to handle those calls for service instead of just a normal police officer. So I would love to see us get to a point to where police officers aren't the catch-all for every call. There are situations that we go to where we shouldn't be there. And then not only should we not be there, but some of the training in some of the military style that someone else had talked about earlier, put people in situations to where everything needs to be handled with a gun. Or I thought, I feared for my life. I fear for my life. You hear suspects saying that, and you hear police officers saying that now. And so what we tried to explain to the officers is this, hey, it's okay to be scared, but understand this. When you woke up this morning, you put on a badge, a gun, and a bulletproof vest, you inherently knew that your job is dangerous. And so you need to get that in your mind first, and that way, if a scary situation happens, it's not going to be as scary. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And if we could let Herb and Sue have the last question, and then we want to be respectful of Chief Hill's time and let him get back to his day, and we can do our regular meeting.
You may have a question. I actually just have a statement. I
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
think a lot of people realize that Lincoln University also had the lab school. And I know that a coworker of mine in Jeff City had gone to Lincoln University from Fulton. So they didn't have a Douglas school like we have, but his comment was he probably got a better education than he would if he had an African-American school in Fulton. So I think a lot of people don't realize the history of the area that way.
They don't, and I agree with you 110%. I wish, again, we just have to get to a point to where all of us, law enforcement and communities we serve, we got to get the chip off our shoulder and talk about what's going on. And not only talk about what's going on, but since we service you all, we need to be listening to what you all are saying. Oftentimes in law enforcement, we get the mommy and daddy syndrome, meaning we know what's best for you. You guys don't know what's going on. We got all the training and everything else with that. You go, we know what's best for our communities, but we really should be listening to the communities and sharing with them what we're seeing from our perspective so that, you guys know what's going on. The most detrimental thing to our communities, and one of the things I share with our recruits is this: for community members and police officers to make decisions off of bad information. That's one of the most detrimental things to the communities that we serve as police officers and to you all. If you guys are saying one thing and we're saying another, then we're making a decision on what's best for our community off of bad information because we didn't sit down and talk about it and come to a consensus on what needs to be done.
Thank you for doing what you are doing. And thank you for taking on a strong role, including in the post commission.
It puts me in a position to help be able to affect policy.
So you're one of the ones that carries a gun. You're not the one that's a citizen member.
Correct.
I was a citizen member. I was the only one at meetings who was not armed. But I think it's not.
Yeah, I'm sure I speak for
Thank you very
everyone when
much.
we say this is just a wonderful program. I personally enjoy learning more about it. And now you've got, a handful now of ambassadors who can go out in our community and talk about what you're doing there and from an informed place. So thank you so much for being here today and letting us know what you're doing. This has been really great.
Thank you for having me on. Sorry about the hiccup with the computer.
It's fine. It's Zoom. It's a thing. There's always some little surprise. Great.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
You all too have a great weekend.
Okay. I think for our regular business meeting, guys, all we have to talk about is Kathy's announcements. Sorry, not Kathy, Pam's announcements. So let's do those, and then we can end the regular meeting and go on to the executive committee meeting.